Hi, today I'd like to take you through a short presentation on innovating exceptional value, or better known as disruptive innovation. In this session, I would like to quickly cover the following. The first principles, a famous case explaining the first principles, the overriding purpose, the conceptual framework, and a go-to-market process. First of all, let's just understand who is famous for innovating exceptional value. You'll know a whole bunch of organizations that are famous for innovating exceptional value, but here are a few that has reached 1 billion valuation in a very short period of time. Companies like Pinterest, Airbnb, Uber, and a whole host of them. I don't want to dwell too long on it, but you'll know your own cases. I want to have a look at what are the first principles behind innovating exceptional value. Those few laws that govern the subject. The first law is innovation can create value if and only if it diminishes a limitation for the market. I'll get back to it in terms of showing it through an example, but understand that the innovator creates the value by removing a limitation. The second principle, innovation is necessary but not sufficient. The market must adopt new rules to realize the full value. And that is called realized value. So you can see that the innovator needs to create through removing a limitation, and the market must adopt rules to realize the full value. Right, let me show you through an example. Henry Ford. If you had to quickly think, what was the limitation that the car removed for the market? Let me show you what Henry Ford thought. Henry Ford was very convinced that a person or the market, from walking from their house to work every day, or going by horse or by bicycle, was limited to roughly around 5 miles. He called it the 5-mile lifestyle space. So everything had to happen within that 5 miles. Otherwise, your trip would be a day or two away. So he said 5 miles, that is the current limitation. And his invention for the car would remove it by extending that to a 20-mile radius. Now you can understand that a 20-mile radius is dramatically bigger than the 5-mile radius. So lots of things became possible. But let's just understand how he approached the whole subject. He could have sold to the market based on the product-centric view, which is the technical benefits and features of the car. Now you'll get on every single website of people that they will list their technical benefits and features. Things like in the car's case, speed, capacity, endurance, night lights, prestige factor, fun factor, weatherproof. No, he went a different route. He said, what's the customer-centric way? Is right now people are limited in their lifestyle to roughly 5 miles. To accommodate for the 5-mile limitation, they would adopt a way of looking at things in the essential services. So what are the penalty of the 5-mile lifestyle space? Stuff typically like you have to move house when changing jobs, small trade stores, you have only the essential parts. A school will most probably only be a teacher. Medical would only be most probably a doctor. Everywhere you looked, everything was kept to the essential. Even the amount of labor that was available to work was very limited, and you were quite a long distance to your market. If you look through now what has become possible through this invention, we are now moving towards the 20-mile lifestyle space. But obviously, in the 20 lifestyle space, there is no benefit from looking at that space through essential services. Clearly, we can now focus on efficient services. And what are the benefits then? It's easier to change jobs without changing homes, improve your general facilities in terms of size. Your retail stores is much bigger, much more products, lower prices. Your schools will be a lot bigger, not just one teacher. You'll even have a hospital. The availability of labor would be good. Your product demand will be within a day's reach. And even things like team sport becomes possible. That's in essence just to explain the two components, that you have a limitation and you need to overcome the limitation. But by overcoming the limitation, the market must change their rule set from what's the old rule towards what's the new rule to truly realize the benefits. The overriding purpose of all these companies that are growing exceptionally by delivering exceptional value is the following: to deliver exceptional value through removing a significant limitation for the market in a way that was not possible before, and to the extent that no competitor can easily copy. I want to now go into the conceptual framework, the way of thinking. How do we think within the space? First of all, we start off with the market's big problem. They are facing a limitation, and they have adopted and accommodated for the limitation through adopting rules to cope with the limitation. Like in the case of Henry Ford's The 5 Mile, they immediately adopted the focus on essential services. Now, the first principle is now to use innovation to remove that limitation. Obviously, we will create new space. We don't know how far the next limitation will be, but between this limitation and the next one, you've created a potential value. Call it the potential value space or the intrinsic value of your innovation. But until the market has changed from the old rules to the new rules, they will not really start to realize the new value. And for that, we need principle 2. Make the market adopt the new rules. And in order to motivate them, we're going to use something called a catalyst. But to make it clear, the moment the market adopts the new rules, they start to realize some of that potential value, and it's called realized value. So the invention creates the value, the rules realize the new value. And that is a very, very important point when it comes to creating or innovating exceptional value. Then obviously we will look into the catalyst. What would be required to be so convincing to a market to adopt the new rules? Because once they adopt the new rules, they'll start to realize the value. And what we have found was that the best catalyst is a minimum value guarantee that counts. Not a minimum viable product, but a minimum value guarantee that counts. And once the person is convinced that you are convinced, he will adopt the new rules and start to attract or to use the product. All right, that's in basic terms, the conceptual framework through which we'll be thinking. I want to touch on just one aspect that was covered by Dr. Edward Deming. If you don't know how to ask the right questions, you discover nothing. Using a method without recognizing the principles of the subject that you're analyzing, you're not asking the right questions. You're asking, in fact, the wrong questions. You end up in a process called trial and error method. When you are using a method and you are recognizing the principles of your subject that you're analyzing, then you end up asking the right questions. And that equals the cause and effect method. We know that the cause and effect method is a quantum order more reliable than the trial and error method. Innovation is right now moving from trial and error method towards cause and effect method. Go to market, how do we put it into a process? How do we put this entire thing into a process of go to market? How do we de-risk a market adoption constraint? So on the left, we would like to start off by saying, no matter what you look at your product, there's always a possibility of a mismatch. We need to understand what is the risks towards moving towards a proven one. So from a possible mismatch to a proven match with the market, where we're delivering exceptional value, we need to do it in the shortest possible time with the least amount of risk. So the first step in go-to-market is to assess the risk of a potential mismatch of perception of value. He will actually do that risk assessment against those two principles. Do you diminish a limitation for the market, and do you command the new rules that the market must adopt to realize the full value? Then we will take the risk assessment and then look at the offer and start to align the offer according to the risks. In stage one, we'll be looking at the principle one, which is removing the limitation. And how does your offer stack up against removing the full limitation? We'll identify the shortcomings, address them, and make sure that your offer to the market in terms of the product or technology, whatever, does overcome the limitation. At that point, we will say, right now, there's a potential for a possible match. We'll then go into the second stage to align your offering. And by looking at through adopting the new rules to realize the value. What rules and how can we incorporate the rules into the features of your current offering to make sure that the customer will be easy to adopt the new rules to realize the full value. Once that is done, we're reaching a point called a probable match. And from that probable match, we now need to understand how do we motivate the market to such a level that they are absolutely convinced that this is a must-have product, there is no risk in it, and I can continue to adopt and to buy the product. And for that, we are looking at the stage 3, which is the catalyst, the value guarantee that counts. Once we identify the value guarantee that counts, we test it against the market to see what is the hit rate and how high is the market's perception of value based on that. Right, so those are the basic steps to go as fast as possible and to align your offering to get to a proven match in the market and to deliver exceptional value. Right, guys and ladies and gentlemen, thank you and goodbye.